May 13th. St. John the Silent. John was born of a noble family at Nicopolis in Armenia in the year 454, but he derived from the virtue of his parents a much more illustrious nobility than that of their pedigree. After their death, he built at Nicopolis a church in honor of the Blessed Virgin, as also a monastery, in which with 10 fervent companions he shut himself up when only 18 years of age, with a view of making the salvation and most perfect sanctification of his soul his only and earnest pursuit. Not only to shun the danger of sin by the tongue, but also out of sincere humility and contempt of himself, and the love of interior recollection and prayer, he very seldom spoke, and when obliged to, it was always in very few words and with great discretion. To his extreme affliction, when he was only 28 years old, the Archbishop of Sebaste obliged him to quit his retreat and ordained him Bishop of Colonian in Armenia in 482. In this dignity, John preserved always the same spirit, and as much as was compatible with the duties of his charge, continued his monastic austerities and exercises. Whilst he was watching one night in prayer, he saw before him a bright cross formed in the air, and heard a voice which said to him, "If thou desirest to be saved, follow this light." It seemed to move before him, and at length point out to the monastery of St. Sebaste. Being satisfied what the sacrifice was which God required at his hands, he found means to abdicate the episcopal charge and retired to the neighboring monastery of St. Sebaste, which at that time contained 150 fervent monks. St. John was then 38 years old. After living there unknown for some years, fetching water, carrying stones, and doing other menial work, St. Sebaste, judging him worthy to be promoted to the priesthood, presented him to the Patriarch Elias. St. John took the Patriarch aside, and having obtained from him a promise of secrecy, said, "Father, I have been ordained bishop, but on account of the multitude of my sins I have fled, and come into this desert to wait the visit of the Lord." The Patriarch was startled, but God revealed to St. Sebaste the state of the affair, whereupon, calling for John, he complained to him of his unkindness in concealing the matter from him. Finding himself discovered, John wished to quit the monastery, nor could St. Sebaste prevail on him to stay, but on a promise never to divulge the secret. In the year 503, St. John withdrew into a neighboring wilderness, but in 510 went back to the monastery and confined himself for 40 years to his cell. St. John, by his example and counsels, conducted many fervent souls to God, and continued to emulate, as much as this mortal state will allow, the glorious employment of the heavenly spirits in an uninterrupted exercise of love and praise, till he passed to their blessed company, soon after the year 558, having lived 76 years in the desert, which had only been interrupted by the 9 years of his episcopal dignity. Reflection. A love of Christian silence is a proof that a soul makes it her chiefest delight to be occupied on God, and finds no comfort like that of conversing with him. This is the paradise of all devout souls.